Hi friends, welcome to the Share, Invite, Proclaim channel. My name is Judy. Excuse me. We're in a series about Revelation. And hopefully you've been following along, and hopefully that you look in the scripture as we're talking about those things. We are in Act 6 of chapter 18. Before, we talked about the harlot and the beast, and today we want to talk about the fall of Babylon. The audience in Ephesus at this theater that has 7 windows, they were excited finally to hear about what John had to say about the fall of Babylon. They'd been waiting for it because of all of the persecution churches, everyone had experienced from Rome and the Roman government. So we're in a series here in Revelation 17 and following about the 7 judgments. So each window will have a judgment against evil. Well, in chapter 18, verse 1, another angel comes down from heaven. This angel has great authority and illuminates the earth with his glory. Now, who is this angel? Well, Scholar Fox suggests that this angel came directly from God, and his being showed God's glory, just like Moses' face shone after coming down from Mount Sinai in Exodus 34. I'm okay with that. Verse 2, fallen is Babylon the Great. Like in Isaiah 21:9, it says, now behold, here comes a troop of riders, horsemen in pairs. And one said, fallen, fallen is Babylon, and the image of her false gods are shattered on the ground. So the angel is saying, fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. It has become a dwelling place of demons. They reside there, and a prison of every unclean spirit and hateful bird. In Jewish thought, demons lived in deserted buildings and dry areas. Foul and hateful birds are drawn from Jeremiah 50, verse 39. Jeremiah 50 and 51 is a prophecy against Babylon. Verse 3 of chapter 18 announces the reasons that the Roman Empire is going to be destroyed. First, the kings of the nations have drunk wine of her immorality, her arrogance, her pride, her power of wealth. Secondly, the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, used in idol worship. And third, the merchants of the earth have grown wealthy from sinful excesses of wealth. Scholar DeSantos is going to add 2 more. Rome and the empire has deceived the nations and killed the prophets and saints. Then verse 4 of 18, a voice from heaven, and who is this voice? It's telling the Jews to leave Jerusalem. Now, why should they leave? So they would not engage in Babylon's sins. Secondly, so they would not receive any of the plagues. And these plagues are listed in verse 8. Plagues of pestilence, sort of like the bubonic plague. Mourning, because judgment has come. Famine, and burned up with fire. Verse 5, her sins have piled up as high as heaven, and God remembers her sins. God remembers Rome and the empire's sins. Verse 6, Rome and those who practice immorality with her will receive a double punishment. She glorified herself and lived sensuously, so her punishment will be double. Verse 7, as a queen, Rome was at the top of her society. Rome was proud and arrogant and wealthy, and now as a widow, she mourns in poverty and helplessness. Verses 9 and 10, we've already talked about 8, which is the plagues. Verse 9 and 10, the kings of the earth who committed acts of immorality with Rome will weep and lament over her when they see the city burning. Verse 10, the kings who committed sins with Rome will stand at a distance so that they will not be destroyed. Verse 11, the merchants who traded with Rome weep and mourn over the burning of Rome because the trade had made them wealthy. They stand at a distance in verse 15. Then verse 12 and 13 lists the trade items, and it shows the vast emphasis on materialism and the vast wealth that Rome made merchants. Dr. Blevins talks about India. It was known for its jewels and pearls. China was known for its silk and cinnamon. Africa for its gold, ivory, and wood. Arabia for its spice, incense, myrrh, and frankincense. Armenia for its horses, and Israel for its slaves. Verse 17 of chapter 18. In 1 hour, her wealth is destroyed. Now, this reference to 1 hour could really be 60 minutes, or it could be a symbol of a quick judgment, find 1 minute and destroy the next, or it could be for an era. Every shipmaster, passenger, and sailor that made their living by the sea stood at a distance, crying at the burning of Rome. Verse 19, they threw dust on their heads, signaling mourning in the ancient world. Verse 20, the reaction of the audience in Ephesus was rejoicing. And those saints and apostles and the prophets in heaven rejoiced because God had pronounced judgment and it finally came. Verse 21, then a strong angel, and who's this? Well, maybe it's the same strong angel we saw in verse 1 of chapter 18. Throwing a stone in the Mediterranean, like Jeremiah threw his writing, he told the scribe to throw it into the Euphrates. God had Jeremiah write about all the calamity that would happen to Babylon on a single scroll. And then he told his Sarah, it's a quartermaster in charge of provisions, to read the words aloud in Babylon and then tie a stone around it and throw it into the middle of the Euphrates and say, just so shall Babylon sink down and not rise again because of the calamity that I, talking about God, am going to bring upon her. Verse 21, Rome will be thrown down with violence. They have been sacked many times by barbarian tribes from the east, and Rome will not be found any longer, meaning that the Rome of the first century and the empire will no longer exist. Verse 22a, Scholar Fox says, the entertainment is destroyed, and the sound of harpists and musicians and flute players and trumpeters will not be heard any longer. And verse 22b, industry is destroyed. No craftsman of any craft will be found in you any longer, and the sound of a mill will not be heard any longer. And then in 23a, home life is destroyed. The light of a lamp will not shine any longer. The voice of the bride and the bridegroom is no longer heard. And then verse 23b, commerce is destroyed. For your merchants were great men of the earth. They perished. And verse 24, Scholar Fox suggests that the demand of emperor worship was the cause of the greatest sin, and therefore is taken as part of the reason for Rome and its empire destroyed. And I agree with that. My pages are sticking together. Sorry. Well, maybe it's somewhere else, and I'll get to it eventually. Well, this is the second window of Act 6, and what comes after this in chapter 18 is the rejoicing in heaven over this destruction of Rome and the empire and the marriage supper of the Lamb. I'm sure you've probably heard a lot about the marriage supper of the Lamb, not only in the Gospels, but in sermons or reading about it in Revelation. So I thank you for listening, and I hope that this message goes out clearly, and that you will be able to hear it and interpret it easily. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next time.